Sometimes I don't wanna go out. The music's too dull and it's way too loud. Sometimes it sounds like fun to be at home with pajamas.
Hi, I'm C. Dan Paint. I'm an artist. And I'm Mr. Smith. I'm an art teacher. Together we are Dan Smith, an artist and an art teacher with an identity crisis. I'm here today to discuss my research into arts-based research that uses visual arts in both the methods and as a way to report the findings. So let's take a look at an autoethnographic research piece that I'm working on that uses visual arts both in the process, in the methodology, and in reporting the findings. Take a look at this. So as I've been reading about arts-based research, I keep coming across this word process. Process is something that I, as an artist, know a lot about. I'm tied to my artistic processes, and the process from sketch to final artwork is a process. So I'm working on autoethnographic research to get to the crux of my identity crisis as an artist and a teacher. These sketches and drawings here are from some pieces I was working on while I was doing that writing, and these are about place and kind of in the Thoreauian sense of place, how place affects us. So those kind of carry on into this next piece, which is a culturegram where I kind of looked at different cultural elements and different things that I'm involved with. You can see that I'm at the center, and then these things kind of sprout out from the middle. All part of that autoethnographic research, which is a written text that kind of goes along with this. This is a painting that I did called Maybe I Should Have Been a Farmer Like My Forefathers. And I painted it as I kind of dealt with those same kind of crises of identities. Am I an artist? Am I a teacher? It's something that I want to explore because art teachers and artists are in a position where they can kind of do both. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've got a lot for you to read if you'd like about my autoethnography. But let's take a look at the process of how I'm using art to explore that study of myself. All right, so the piece that I envision is a work that has several wood pieces kind of separated out so that I can talk, kind of like you saw earlier in that sketch with everything coming out of my head, and show the different aspects of my careers and how they connect and work together. It also involves a little Moby Dick reference, and in the way that I'm kind of Captain Ahab chasing the white whale. What are the white whales that I've chased over my careers? This was the earliest inkling of this whole idea that I started with. I planned, this is an old sketch from maybe 10 years ago. I had a series of paintings planned called Ghost Man on First. The Ghost Man, when we played baseball and had little pickup games of baseball when we were kids, the Ghost Man would stand in for the extra players when you didn't have enough players to cover all the bases because there were only like 4 or 5 of us playing. So I started with this idea of the Ghost Man as kind of a silhouette that would represent me. Writer's right. As an artist, I draw. I also write. So these are my original plans for this project as it's kind of come to fruition as I came up with these different ideas. So I have a plan to take 8 figures. The 8 figures will be in a circle, the kind of like an octopus, if you would. And they're all going to surround this white whale that will have different things written on it, different connections to make, different symbols. And each of these 8 silhouettes will represent different aspects of my personal and professional lives, with the connection to the writings that I've made about my autoethnography. So these silhouettes then were taken out, and my plan is to have those cut out of wood so that I can individually paint these, and um, they'll be able to be hung on a wall.
All right, let's move on and discuss a little bit of my methodology and the literature that I've been looking at. The autoethnographic methodology that I'm looking at comes from Chang's Autoethnography as Method and Ellison Bachner's work in the Handbook of Autoethnography. I'm also studying Ronald Pelias's The Methodology of the Heart, which is a very good book where he uses a lot of narrative and poetry to write his autoethnography. And I'm looking at Tom Barone's Touching Eternity and also Dana Walras' Alzheimer's. I was also fortunate enough, as my artistic processes change and develop, I was able to work with a professor in the sculpture department, and I was able to use the CNC router machine to actually cut out the pieces, and you'll see that here at work while I'm talking more. This is currently in progress for a directed study on autoethnography. I'm writing 8 sections that align with these 8 pieces that I'm using in this artwork. My autoethnographic research has revealed tensions, connections, and conflicts between these 8 aspects of my life. I'm drawing, no pun intended, from an article by Richard Hickman called Visual Arts as Research and Graham Sullivan's book, Art Practice as Research. I'm looking to define the characteristics that allow visual arts research to be part of the methodology that does more than just use art to report findings. As Hickman notes, art is a way of knowing. So I'm working with using that. So I'm looking at that as an alternative way to display knowledge through artwork. Sullivan somewhat defends art as research in relationship to the overarching emphasis that science has historically dictated as to what research means. In Rita Irwin's discussion of artography, she lists traits and characteristics that she describes, one of those as openings. An opening is used in arts-based research to open up conversations and relationships instead of informing others about what has been learned. I'm interested in opening up this conversation with art educators. What is the relationship of being an artist to teaching art? So as my study continues, I will interview and work with other artist teachers and art teachers who don't practice art in order to gain insight into the relationship of art to teaching art. Am I here to divulge knowledge to the unlearned? No, I'm here to open up a dialogue between artist teachers, teacher artists, and teachers, just as an artwork opens up a dialogue with the viewer. I'm also interested in how the 8 studio habits of mind are reflected in my practice as an artist and as an art teacher. I could see this developing into another octedial artwork connecting the 8 habits to the core or central cloud of my process or practice as an artist and a teacher. I see a relationship between artistic process and self-portraits when we speak of autoethnography. I would argue that all art is autoethnographic in a sense because the art originates from an individual who brings his or her own personal context to the creation and production of the artwork, regardless of their intention. In a similar fashion is a dialogue that occurs between a viewer and an artwork, as the viewer brings their context to the interpretation of that artwork. I see production as research, whether or not an individual was intent to clarify or delineate findings, but that resulting artwork is an example of findings, whether it's interpreted or not. This process can be honed into a directed research process. So what I'm doing, my research questions include, what is the experience of being an artist teacher, and what has my experience as an art teacher done in my life as both an artist and an art teacher? In the broad scope of my research, I've considered these other research questions, such as how does being an artist who teaches contribute to the experience of the students of the artist teacher? Also, how does a formally trained artist balance the career of artist with the career of formally trained art educator? And what compels some art educators to produce artwork? So as I set out to trace the path of my autoethnographic study of Dan, the artist teacher, and my relationships to the cultures of art and art education, I started designing an art piece that will highlight the 8 characteristics or part of my life, or identities, if you will, that are involved in my quest to be both an artist and teacher. Central is my quest to be an artist. This is represented through Moby Dick as a symbol for what is sought. How do my 8 identities seek to be or connect with being an art teacher? What I'll present in the end is these 8 completed figures and the whale as a completed visual representation, an autobiography, a self-portrait, and an autoethnographic research piece of Dan Smith, the artist teacher. A poster statement will be displayed with this art piece. The poster will briefly discuss autoethnography, arts-based research, and some of the literature that I drew from for this research.